Skiddaw. Skiddaw is a mountain in the Lake District National Park in England. Its 931-meter, 3,054 ft summit is the sixth highest in England. It lies just north of the town of Keswick, Cumbria, and dominates the skyline in this part of the Northern Lakes. It is the simplest of the Lake District mountains of this height to ascend, as there is a well-trodden tourist track from a car park to the northeast of Keswick, near the summit of Latrigg, and as such, many walking guides recommend it to the occasional walker wishing to climb a mountain. This is the first summit of the fell running challenge known as the Bob Graham Round when undertaken in a clockwise direction. The mountain lends its name to the surrounding areas of Skiddaw Forest and back o' Skidda, and to the isolated Skiddaw House, situated to the east, formerly a shooting lodge and subsequently a youth hostel. It also provides the name for the slate derived from that region, Skiddaw slate. Tuned percussion musical instruments or lithophones exist which are made from the slate, such as the Musical Stones of Skiddaw held at the Keswick Museum and Art Gallery. Topography. The northern fells make up a roughly circular upland area approaching 10 miles 16 kilometers in width. At the center is the marshy depression of Skiddaw Forest, a treeless plateau or valley at an elevation of about 400 meters 1,300 feet. Flowing outwards from here are the rivers that divide the area into three sectors. The southwestern sector, between the Glendorater Beck and Dash Beck, contains Skiddaw and its satellites. Skiddaw itself takes the form of a north-south ridge about 1/2 mile 800 meters long, with steep slopes to east and west. The ridge continues northwards over Broad End to Bakestall, a fell overlooking the Whitewater Dash waterfall. Further ridges fan out east and west from the southern end of Skiddaw. To the southeast are Skiddaw Little Man, Lonscale Fell, and Latrigg, an easily accessible viewpoint for Keswick and Derwentwater. Beyond these fells are the Glendorater Beck and the Blencathra group. The southwestern ridge curves round through 180 degrees to run north above the shore of Bassenthwaite Lake. This gives Skiddaw an outer wall, comprising Carl's Side, Long Side, and Ulloch Pike, collectively referred to as Longside Edge. The final member of the Skiddaw group is Dodd, a satellite of Carl's Side. Between Skiddaw and Longside Edge are the quiet valleys of Southerndale and Barkethdale, separated by the spur of Buzzard Knot. These drain the western flanks of the fell to Bassenthwaite Lake. The eastern side of Skiddaw drains into Skiddaw Forest, much of the water reaching Candlesieves Bog. This marsh is the source of both the Dash Beck flowing northwest to Bassenthwaite and the River Caldew, beginning its long journey northeastward. Two smooth spurs on this eastern flank of Skiddaw, Salehow and Hare Crag, are listed in separate tops in some guidebooks. Salehow is also a nuttall. Skiddaw's slopes are generally rounded and convex, looking from a distance as though a thick velvet blanket has been draped over a supporting frame. On the ridges the general terrain is of loose stones, but elsewhere all is grass and heather. Wainwright noted that its lines are smooth, its curves graceful, but because the slopes are steep everywhere, the quick build-up of the massif from valley levels to central summit is appreciated at a glance, and it should be an appreciative glance, for such massive strength and such beauty of outline rarely go together. Geology Theology. The bedrock of Skiddaw, commonly known as Skiddaw slate, is the Kirk-style formation. This Ordovician rock is composed of laminated mudstone and siltstone with grey-wacky sandstone. At the summit this is overlain by scree, and to the south are areas where the underlying Loess water formation surfaces. Summit. The summit ridge bears a number of tops, which from north to south are known as North Top, High Man the Summit, Middle Top, and South Top. All now bear cairns, and a number of stone wind shelters have been erected. Skiddaw has a subsidiary summit, Little Man, which lies about 1.5 km south-southeast of the main peak. Despite its limited independence, Wainwright listed it as a separate fell in his influential pictorial guide to the Lakeland Fells, a convention which is often followed. Skiddaw Little Man has its own subsidiary summit, known as Lesser Man. The view is as panoramic as might be expected, given Skiddaw's topographic prominence. From High Man, the northeast quadrant is filled by the quiet fells of Back o' Skiddaw, with the border hills, the Cheviots, and the North Pennines behind them. To the southeast are Blencathra, the far eastern fells, and the Helvellyn Range. Behind these are vistas of the Yorkshire Dales and Forest of Bowland. The Kynaston Fells are visible directly to the south. On the other side of South Top is a fine view of the Scaffolds, western and northwestern fells, with a portion of Snowdonia visible between Kirk Fell and Pillar. The Isle of Man is visible 60 miles 100 kilometers away, as are the Mourne Mountains 120 miles 195 km away on exceptionally clear days. The final quarter is taken up by the coastal plain and the distant Solway Firth, backed by the hills of Galloway such as Merrick, Criffel, and Broad Law. Goat Fell on Arran can be seen at an angle of 313 degrees, 105 miles 170 km away. The most distant view is of Slieve Mealmore in the mountains of Mourne in County Down, Northern Ireland, 120 miles 195 km distant. By moving to South Top, a superb view of Borrowdale can be brought into sight. Ascents. Many routes of ascent have been devised for Skiddaw. Indeed, it is hard to devise a challenging approach in good conditions. The most popular tourist route starts from Keswick and first ascends behind Latrigg, before the climb continues over the slopes of Little Man to the summit. About 200 m of ascent can be saved by driving to the top of Gale Road and beginning from the public car parked just behind the summit of Latrigg. Another popular route, and the one recommended by Wainwright, is to follow Longside Edge, first ascending Ulloch Pike, Longside, and Carlside before making the steep climb up from Carlside. Colonel. Also from the north, a somewhat tougher alternative is to walk up Buzzard Knot between Southerndale and Barkbithdale, after crossing to the southern edge of the shoulder above Randall. Rather easier than either of these is the compass walk due south from Cockup 505 m. Reversing this route provides a safe descent, especially in bad weather. Scramblers may prefer simply to walk up Southerndale and climb Longside via a distinctive crevice seen easily from Skiddaw summit. From the southwest at Millbeck, Carlside Call can be reached directly. A start from nearby Applethwaite can also be used to provide a variation to the tourist route. From the northwest, a tough but picturesque ascent can be made to the northern end of Longside Edge before following the ridge route to the summit. Finally, ascents from due east are possible for the walker who first makes for Skiddaw House, a good distance from either Keswick, Threlkeld, or Peterhouse. Once Skiddaw House is reached, a fairly direct line is possible, climbing over either Sail Howe or Hare Crag. From the northeast, an unmarked but quite easy and fairly well-worn path starts at Whitewater Waterfall on the Cumbrian Way, where the walker can follow the fence along Burkitt Edge just south of Dead Crags past the Bakestall outcrop, and follow the fence until just before the unnamed top at 831. From the 831 top, a path leads directly to Skiddaw Man. Etymology. Early forms of the name from the include Skythu in c. 1260 and Skiddaw in 1247. According to Eilert Ekwall, Skiddaw's name is derived from the Old Norse elements skyti, or skut plus hogger, meaning either Archer's Hill or Jutting Crag Hill. Diana Whaley likewise interprets it as the mountain with the jutting crag, but also offers the alternative that the first element may be a personal name or Old Norse skit or dung, filth, shit. Richard Coates suggests that it is possible that a Cumbric solution is to be sought. Skiddaw House. Below Sail Howe is Skiddaw House, a stone building which has variously served as a shooting lodge, a shepherd's bothy, and a youth hostel. Its windbreak comprises the only trees in Skiddaw Forest, and it is reached by a long access track up the Dash Valley. Built around 1829 by the Earl of Egremont, it was originally a keeper's lodge, a base for grouse shooting, and for the gamekeepers who managed the extensive land owned by Egremont in Skiddaw Forest. Little is known of the house in the 19th century, but it was used by both gamekeepers and shepherds beyond 1860, and there were rooms for egremont and the shooting parties. Canon Rawnsley, a founder of the National Trust, visited in about 1900 and mentions in one of his books the hospitality of the shepherd's family at that time. Sir Hugh Walpole, author of the Lake District novel Rogue Harry's, was a visitor in the 1920s and 30s and used the house as the scene, set in 1854, of the murder by Oland. These arrangements for accommodation continued until the early 1950s. Several families brought up their children there until they were able to go to school, but the longest tenure was possibly that of Pearson Dalton, a shepherd and bachelor from the Caldbeck area, who came to stay for a month in 1952 and left in 1969 aged 75. He lived there alone for 5 days a week, only going home for long weekends with his sister in Caldbeck, then returning on the Monday to resume his duties. By that time farming practices had changed, and the house was no longer needed. It declined, although there was intermittent use by various schools and outdoor groups. In 1986 a house was leased by John Bothamley, who had created the YHA Carrickfell hostel a few miles away, and eventually the building was handed over to the YHA. It closed in 2002 following a disagreement over the lease. In 2007 it reopened as an independent hostel run by the Skiddaw House Foundation under the YHA Enterprise franchising model. In literature,